Welcome to a pretty crazy weekend of motorsport. In preparation for the season finale at Hampton Downs, I gave the 200SX an oil change. I was going to be asking a lot of it this weekend, having entered the Improved Production Car Racing, or IPC, in addition to Superlap. That would mean a total of 10 stints over the weekend, including 3 20-minute door-to-door races, my first proper racing since the 2K Cup 1 hour 3 years ago. Rachel and Cal Flynn also cross-entered both categories in their BMWs, and Ben Vanderwerf is also a regular IPC competitor in his Evo. Well, it definitely would have been quicker and easier just to jack it up, but anyway, did the job. Here's a quick look at the front end reinforcing that went into the car after last season. Someone had gotten a bit too keen when it comes to weight reduction and cut most of the front of the car off. So Dad brought along his experience as a panel beater, and we glued, bolted and riveted a bunch of aluminium into strategic locations to stop everything from flapping around. The front bumper and headlight support assembly had to be relocated and reinforced as well. Come race day, I was up bright and early to head up to Hampton Downs in the trusty Crewman. I was in a rush from the start to get unloaded and get documentation done before IPC qualifying, my first stint of the day. Todd was as usual invaluable in helping getting the car ready.
Now, I've come down a little bit on that left front, because I think if you can work it, it should come up and be even across the front, because I reckon otherwise the left front will balloon out a little bit, so I've just staggered the front. It's only like a pound and a half, so see how it goes.
Oh, I'm not recorded though.
Sweet. Oh, good luck, mate.
IPC runs in 3 classes, separated by breakout times. I entered IPC 3, figuring I was fairly unlikely to breach the 121.5 breakout for the class, whereas Cal's expected sub-120s would land him squarely in IPC 2, which is a breakout of 117.5. While the Superlap sessions are spread out, 3 on each day, IPC was scheduled for Saturday only. That would mean 7 sessions today, qualifying and 3 IPC races with 3 Superlap sessions in between, and then just the 3 Superlap sessions on Sunday. Somehow I didn't record a time in qualifying. Well, Cal qualified 6th with a 119, while Rachel struggled to find pace, recording a 130. I don't know what happened between these 2 BMWs. Just got out of the car after IPC qualifying, and I gotta get straight back in for stint 1 of Superlap. So at least everything's all up to temp. Let's go there and give it heaps, I guess. My moustache looks like fuck. Adam Ostermeyer led out the slow group in his MX-5, followed by Cal Flynn in the BMW E36, Bruce Clothier in the Stella GT, Cheryl Curran in the FD RX-7, Ben Bishop in the Mazda 3 MPS, Phil Finlay in the 350Z, and Ashnil Lal in a borrowed AE111 Toyota Truno. I requested to start last, not fancying my chances after some indifferent results this season, and somehow not having recorded a time in IPC qualifying. I was roundly criticised for that decision, and my detractors proved correct as I reeled in and passed Ashnil and Phil my first lap out. Adam woke up and chose violence, letting Cal and Bruce through early on. Cut to a lap later, and I also caught the turbo Mazda of Ben Bishop. misunderstanding on the way into turn 4 cost us both some time, but I then had some clear track to set some times. Here's Cal's fastest lap from session 1 in the 2.8 litre BMW. He starts the way he means to go on, scrabbling for traction with an aggressive line through turn 1. Tyres protest his entry speed to 2, and he short shifts to 4th for turn 3, using all the track on the way out. He's got the BMW well and truly dialed in already, as you can see from how he uses every inch of track through the infield. His approach to the sweeper looks pretty wide, but he drags it around by the scruff of its neck for the long run up the hill to the finish. He ends up with a 118.995, 4 tenths faster than in IPC qualifying. I ended up with a 122.0, 9 tenths faster than my PB here last season, but Phil pipped me by 100th. I couldn't be too upset with that, having edged out Luke's turbo starlet by a couple of tenths, and also recording faster times than Rachel, Ben and Ash Neal, as well as Greg Hurst, who was still battling with issues in his hastily repaired MR2. At the pointy end, Glenn Hodges had a nearly 5-second margin of the rest of the fast group. Rachel, Cal and I hurried to get to the dummy grid for IPC Race 2. Lacking a qualifying time, I gridded up on the last row of the grid alongside Warren Parris in the BMW E30. Ahead of us were Rachel in her E36, Chris Watson in an E90 BMW 335i, trailing the other IPC competitors, Ellen Grieg in another E36, Logan Devoy in a Falcon XR8, and Bevan White in the Toyota Altezza. I got caught napping and was slow off the line, but I had the inside line on the E30 of Paris, as well as a little more straight line speed. I took it carefully through turn 1, where Rachel was also leaving plenty of room. I didn't have the pace to capitalise, and she was already all over the back of the turbocharged 3 Series of Watson. She takes the outside around turn 2, but runs a bit too wide on cold tyres and doesn't have the pace to make a move through the inside of 3. That allows me to get the run over the crest of 3 and blow past on the way into the braking zone of turn 4. The V8 Falcon and Turbo 3 Series make their power advantage known on the uphill stretch before the dipper, and pull a significant margin on the way to the final turn. I pulled out a bit of a margin over Rachel as well, and then run very wide through the sweeper. lap 2 and the cars ahead of me have pulled out a big lead. I'm able to carry more speed through turn 1 though and start pulling that margin back. By this point I'd settled on using 3rd gear for turn 2 despite the SR20's decided lack of mid-range torque. At the final turn I get a nice line on Watson, crossing from outside to inside to run past him up the hill to the finish line. Inevitably though, the big Turbo 6 stretches its legs and takes that spot back before the end of the lap. I switch to the outside for a big run out of turn 1. It's not enough to threaten him, but I'm immediately much better placed than last lap. Back 2 seconds for turn 2 on this lap, but immediately regret it. I am able to hold onto the back of the Beamer, and being able to brake later, I take a good look down the inside. Yes, well. The field starts to spread out in the following laps, but we stay in touch with the rest of the IPC3 group. A few laps later and Rachel is closing the gap. I go for a fast run out of the dipper and nearly end up stuffing my car into the back of Watson's, escaping with a big noob swerve instead. Despite my good run out of the final corner, Watson runs away from me up the hill. I can more than match the much more powerful E90 in the corners, but I lack the power and frankly the racecraft to make anything stick. By the end of the next lap, the black BMW was looming in my mirrors, and I make an unforced error, running wide at the dipper. I then failed to get it turned into the sweeper, running wide again and battling with oversteer as I try to tighten my line. Rachel makes the most of it, gradually edging her way past and claiming the spot just before turn 1. She quickly closes in on the later model BMW of Watson. She's forced to button off at the exit of the dipper, staying glued to the back of Watson. Chris Watson is now closing in on the Falcon XR8 of Logan Devoy, and Rachel pushes it hard through the infield, leveraging her advantage on this part of the track. A bit of oversteer costs her at turn 4. But she takes advantage of the gap for a fast run through the dipper, sweeping outside of Watson for the inside line to the sweeper. Fellow Superlapper Ben van der Werf, the race leader, threads his way through the traffic in his Evo, while Devoy also laps the E30 of Paris. Ben and Rachel follow him through. Ben van der Werf takes the win from the RX-7 of Scott Mills, while Rachel comes home third in IPC 3 behind Alan Gregg's BMW and Logan Devoy's Falcon. Chris Watson is fourth, while I was unable to get past him and must settle for 5th in class and 13th overall. Superlap Session 2, and here's Bruce Clothier and Luke Hunter in their Turbo Starlets. Ben van der Werf in the Evo. Adrian Rivers in the S13, Ben Goebel in the Legacy, and Brendan Purdy in the VK Big Banger. Stuart Hill in the EF Civic. I lead Phil Finlay's 350Z through the dipper.
But I think it was black and red.
The red goes faster.
Followed up by Rachel in the 2.5 litre BMW. Current top seed in the slow group is Adam Ostermeyer in the Turbo MX-5. And Ashniel Lal rounds out the field.
Yep. Yep.
I knock off 0.15 for a 21.9, not fast enough to beat Finlay and Bishop despite my track position. Brennan was dealing with oil cooling issues in the Holden, but would soon be back out there. Before we knew it, it was time for IPC Race 2. I again get quite a shit start and the rest of IPC 3 streams past. I force her into a defensive line for the dipper, and then get the run down towards the sweeper. At the pointy end, Van der Werf leads Mills from a massive spoiler of Neville Carpenter in third. The less spoilery E36 of Phil Joseph follows, leading the Integra of Gary Morrill, followed by a mystery purple E36, Kellen Silver, and the Toyota 86 of Ryan Denise. Alan Grieg is the first IPC3 car, followed by Dean Jones in the black Altezza, and then it's the rest of IPC3, with Bevan White's Altezza, Logan Devoy's Falcon, Chris Watson's 3 Series, my S14, and Rachel's 3 Series. I'm having a good look at the BMW of Watson, but screw up everything with a misshift. Alan is pulling out all the stops to stay ahead of the Altezza of Jones. Watson has a good look down the inside of Devoy's Falcon while I make up lost ground. Jones finally gets past Grieg at the dipper. I get a good run on Watson out of 4 and Devoy runs wide, allowing him to duck down the inside. I try to follow but can't compete with the power of the big V8 in a straight line. I then misshift again, making it all moot. Denise, meanwhile, has reeled in Kel and takes his 86 around the outside on the way into turn 1. Denise sniffs around the outside of Morrill's Integra at 4, but can't get it turned and is forced back on the defensive as Kel threatens the outside line up the hill. further back, I'm taking back under brakes every inch I lose under power to the Falcon XR8 of Devoy. The next lap, perhaps feeling the pressure, Devoy locks it up big time on the run into the dipper, but I'm not close enough to do anything about it, and don't exactly nail the apex myself. Devoy makes a big dive down the inside of Watson into 4, and I hang out wide, looking for a fast run on the way out. Watson is forced wide, and I overtake on the exit. I leave the door open though, and Watson looks at the inside of the dipper. He doesn't have the cornering speed to take the spot back, however, and I maintain my position for now. He threatens again at the sweeper, but I know I have a lot more mid-corner speed, so I'm not concerned about him getting past me here. It's the long run up the hill that will be the issue for the little SR20. Starts reeling in back markers. Watson makes the turbo BMW's power known and edges up on my inside on the approach to 1. I have the grip to pull ahead on the corner's outside line, and he's forced to make that ground up again on the way to turn 2. I'm able to brake later though, and finally have the lead on him into the infield. I take turn 4 wide as Ben charges through in the Evo. Cal's gearbox, meanwhile, has decided it doesn't want to play the game and refuses to select 4th, except for sometimes. Scott Mills in second comes past in the Gold RX-7, and I start pulling out a margin over Watson. Still struggling with gear selection issues, Cal is eventually forced to retire. The IPC-1 group continues to filter through a lap ahead. I eventually reel in Paris a lap down. until Joseph slaps me at the start of the final lap. And we take the checkered flag on race 2.
That was 1 hour long?
You coming out for Superlaps?
When's that?
Now.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alan Grigg ran away with the win in IPC 3, leaving me 4th and Rachel 5th ahead of Watson. Adam leads the slow group out for Superlap Session 3, followed by Cheryl Curran. Despite being 2 places further back on paper, I went out 3rd, since not needing to warm anything up, I wasn't going to be getting in the way. Adam and Cheryl were the only ones battling it out for street class honours. And now, just for a laugh, is me versus Adam. We both ran our fastest laps of the day right at the end of Session 3. Adam takes his trademark unnecessarily tight entry to Turn 1, having to correct oversteer on the way into the apex. He then does the same thing at Turn 2 for the same result. There's somewhat left on the table at 4. I take a wider entry. A much better line through the dipper gives him a good run as he scoots past Ashneal. Neither of us covers ourselves with glory at the sweeper, and then it's time for the Turbo Mazda to really extend that gap out to a good 5 seconds on the climb up to the finish line. Ben van der Werf continued to chip away at Glenn Hodges' time, the margin now down to 2.5 seconds. Adrian Rivers finished the first day leading Pro Street with a 13.3 to Brendan's 15.2. Adams' 16.6 was enough to place him top of street class, nearly 2 seconds clear of Sherrill. I failed to beat either Phil Finlay or Ben Bishop, and was less than 2/100ths ahead of Rachel. With Cal now out of the running, Rachel and I levered ourselves back into our race cars for the final IPC race, our 7th session of the day. This race would be reverse grid by class, putting me on the front row of IPC 3 alongside Warren Paris. I was determined to get a good start, knowing this was my best chance to come away with a class win. I was confident I could drag off Paris's E30, and could only hope the rest of the class would take long enough to get around him that I could pull out a lead before the start-finish straight. If I finished the first lap ahead, I reasoned, I could take this out. I got the start I wanted, driving around the outside of Paris on the way into the first corner, with a bunch of IPC2 cars just ahead of me. I was briefly concerned about being held up as those faster cars were slowed in their jockeying for position, but their pace was sufficient that I was only held up briefly at turn 2, and that was mostly my own doing. I could see Devoy's big red Falcon in my mirrors, and just put the hammer down. That motivation worked wonders. The second lap turned out to be my fastest lap all day. If only I had a V8 Falcon chasing me around in Superlap. I overcooked turn 1 slightly, but carry a lot of speed now that I've got a clear track in front of me. By the dipper I've already opened a decent gap to Devoy, who has the Altezza of Bevan White nipping at his heels. And it's Watson, Greg, Flynn and Paris rounding out the field. A bit too much speed sees me a little wide at the sweeper, but it's enough. I have the margin I want, now it's just a matter of holding on to it for 20 minutes or so, and not making any mistakes. That lap turns out to be a 21.3, my fastest by 3/10ths, and just under the IPC breakout time. To actually break out, you have to run 2 breakout laps on the trot, or 3 over the course of a meeting. No lap timing equipment is permitted in car to prevent sandbagging, so I had no idea how fast I was actually lapping. Lap 3 and Carpenter takes Joseph's on the way out of the dipper, while Morrill leads Mr. No Name and Denise. I follow up at the head of IPC 3, followed eventually by Devoy, who's been held up by the challenge of White, who gets the run on the way out of the dipper. Greg and Watson are also too close for comfort, with Rachel Flynn rounding out the battle pack. Mr. No Name has gone off somewhere and Denise takes his spot, a bunch of us getting likewise shuffled up the order. Alan Grieg has overtaken Devoy to claim 3rd spot in class. Here's Captain Nemo having lost something like 7 spots. Another lap on and White has fought his way clear of the pack. I can see him in my mirrors as he exits the dipper and begin to get just a little concerned. Greg has disappeared and Rachel dives deep outside of Devoy on the way into the dipper. Here comes Greg trailing a cloud of scenery behind him. The IPC2 cars string out now as they blow through the cloud of Greg's little indiscretion. Consistent laps have allowed me to maintain my lead over White, but I can't afford a single mistake if I'm going to stay ahead of the more powerful Altezza. Watson has overtaken Devoy and stays well inside to protect his position, while nobody works his way back up the order. Devoy has claimed his spot back from Watson, and Flynn is applying pressure. No one catches up to White and makes the pass, while Devoy has bought himself a little breathing room, and Flynn has made the pass on Watson and won't be giving that spot back without a fight.
But hey, look, good to see you out there. It's good to see you back on a racetrack, mate. Yeah, no, it's great to be here and great to get these cars.
No Name now has me in his sights, and I have no idea that we're technically racing for position. Not that it's likely to be much of a fight. Flynn, meanwhile, is chipping away at Devoy's hard-won margin, having pulled out a good lead on Watson in just a lap. Mr. Nobody claimed a position back from me, but since he's an IPC2, that doesn't unduly worry me. The leaders now making their way through the field late in the race. And having had a rather undramatic race myself, I take the checkered flag at the head of IPC3 for my first class win in door-to-door circuit racing. Ben van der Werf rounds out 3 from 3 from Mills and Carpenter. I take out IPC3 from White and Devoy, with Rachel claiming the 4th class spot from Greg, Watson and Paris. Did you know the Speedhive website does this cool position by lap plot? I didn't.
I think that's a class win.
Anyway, that rounds out day 1. We packed up and headed home for the night. And then Sunday bright and early, and Todd got out all his high-tech gear to slightly unfuck my alignment, which, as I keep banging on about, hadn't been touched since I bought the car. I was looking forward to a more relaxing Sunday. Something like 2/3 less seat time than yesterday would be a welcome change. Overnight rain had dampened things down, but by the time the first Superlap session started, a dry line had started to appear. No one was going to be shattering any records until the track dried out, but we went out anyway to make sure everything was working properly, to get a little more seat time in, or just because thrashing a car on a racetrack is really, really fun. I was taking things frankly too easy on the damp but drying surface, and apparently terrified of oversteer, I backed off in the sweeper to let Rachel past. Here's Cheryl, followed by Kel, whose gearbox was mostly working again. The 350Z of Phil Finlay. Now ahead of me, Rachel Flynn in the E36. And Ash Neal was still circulating in the Truno, perhaps inspired by Brendan's performance at Mansfield. As predicted, nothing dramatic happened to the standings this session. The track was continuing to dry though, and we had 2 sessions left to better our times. Come session 5, the sun was out and track conditions were good. Ben Vanderwerf leads Adrian Rivers in the fast group, followed by Brendan Purdy. There's Stuart Hill and Ben Goebel. Having been promoted to the fast group, Adam Ostermeyer rounds out the pack. Aaron Fudderdow finally made it out to cut some times in the very rapid Evo 5. He'd taken the win last round at Mansfield. Now the only real question was, would he be able to beat a Glenn Hodges session one time? Then it was our turn. Here's Luke Hunter, followed by Cheryl Curran. Never one to let a gearbox with no gears get in the way, Cal is still pushing for faster times. Then it's Ben Bishop, Phil Finlay and me. I was very keen to replicate or better my 21.3 from yesterday's final IPC race. I was still several tenths off that mark, and Rachel was an ever-present threat in my mirrors. Then Cal's gearbox decided that he'd had enough fun and started getting fussy about selecting third gear as well. was pushing harder than yesterday, but it wasn't really helping my times. Cal eventually packed it in, having run some 4.5 seconds slower than his session 1 time. I managed a decent but inadequate 21.9, and Aaron Fotodale claimed the top spot from Hodges with a 108, nearly 2 seconds faster. Session 6 was our last chance to improve our results. Instead of a shootout, we had a single 12-minute session for the whole remaining field. I followed Bishop and Finlay out again. Adam was pushing hard in the Turbo MX-5. I was doing likewise, getting a little out of shape in turn 1. Aaron and Brendan quickly caught up to Ash Neil at the back of the pack. And then Adrian Rivers got it all wrong at turn 2. I was looking for that elusive 21.3, with Phil still in my sights. And then the session was cut short. I think I heard that Aaron's Evo oiled the track down, but honestly I'm not sure what happened. I ran another 21.6, not quite beating my session 3 time and not coming close to the pace I achieved in IPC. Ash Neil ran a PB 27.9, And Rivers also PB'd with a 13.1 to take out Pro Street. Brendan's Session 2 14.2 would net him second in class, Goebel third. Adam took out Street class by 1.1 seconds from Cheryl Curran, and Aaron backed up his Session 5 time in Pro Open with a 1 minute 10 in Unlimited to take out both classes, with Stuart Hill and Luke Hunter second and third in Unlimited, while Glenn Hodges had to settle for second in Pro Open, and Ben Vanderwerf third with a 12.4. It was an intense weekend, but so much fun. All thanks to Superlap organisers Kerry and Kaz, as well as Alan Grieg for organising IPC. My return to door-to-door racing couldn't have been more enjoyable, and I'm sure I'll be back for more racing with IPC. Thanks also to Mammoth Insulation, Superlap sponsors ProWear, Haltech, Braceworks, AutoIgnite and Demon Energy. I hope you enjoyed this unprecedentedly long coverage. In future I'll probably stick to the single day per video format. Next time it's a change of pace with a track day at Taupo with my nephew Christian. I bought him an entry for his 21st birthday and he has a BMW 135i that he manual converted. But he hadn't done any racetrack stuff outside of track cruises. Thanks also to Amanda, Dad, Adam, Rachel and Cal, all for the additional footage, and to everyone for helping out and generally hanging out and making it a season to remember. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you do that sort of thing, and if you don't do that sort of thing then it doesn't matter. The numbers are meaningless.